Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I am your host, Ryan Dunlevy. That is my co-host, Rob Dunham.
We're back in the room where we belong.
Yes, we are back, and we were recording live from my office/studio, and we are back. So we've got an excellent show for you today. We'll, of course, hit up the box office and talk about all of the goings on at the box office this week, including the new movies coming out. Our discussion item for the day will be continuing our series of movies with big anniversaries. This year, we'll be covering movies that are 25 years old.
That was like 1984 or something.
No, 1999. Yeah, 1999. Oh, yes. Yeah, craziness here. So yes, we'll go over each of our lists of the top 10 movies of 1999, and it is a tough list to break down because there are so many good movies. And we'll conclude, as always, with our watch list. But first up, let's talk about the box office. So, interesting week in the box office. Box office overall down 10% from last week. It's been down 3 consecutive weeks since Easter weekend. Surprising that it was kind of as low as it was this week. But Civil War, again, this week takes home the number one at the box office. Did $11.2 million. It is at 44.9 million, so basically 45 million for its 2-week run so far. Abigail, in its first week in the box office, came in second at $10.2 million, basically $10.3 million. Number 3 was Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, in week 4 of its run, $9.5 million. And this is up over 170 million domestically, so big release there. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare in its first week came in number 4, and it did $8.9 million. Spy X Family Code White, which was a anime movie, came in 5th in its first week in the box office, $4.8 million. So that rounds out the top 5. Interesting top 5. You have 3 new movies in the top 5. However, none of them made a tremendous amount of money. What do you make of the box office this week?
I'm pretty surprised that Abigail and the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare didn't make more.
Yes.
I was expecting that. I was expecting Abigail to be in the 15 to 20 range and Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare to at least be over 10.
Yeah.
So, especially given there's not a whole lot of big competition out right now.
Yeah, it was a relatively weak week. I don't know why people just didn't go to the box office this weekend. I'm not sure. I think this is one of those weekends where you're seeing some of the pattern shift in consumer behavior that we wouldn't have seen previously. It's just people just didn't go. People just didn't go. I don't know why. I saw the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare promoted a lot in theaters. Do you remember seeing a lot outside of theaters?
Not really. I would say mostly the same thing for Abigail, I would say.
Yeah.
I did my part. I went to both. So.
I went to Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Especially like Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, well-known director Guy Ritchie, well-known cast. You have Henry Cavill, you have Alan Ritchson, you have Carrie Elwes was in it as well. It's an interesting subject matter. I'm surprised. I'm surprised it didn't do better than it did. I would say if you're wondering whether Henry Cavill will be the next Bond, I don't know that, back-to-back Argyle and Ungentlemanly Warfare are gonna lend itself to him getting that role. Not that I think it was his fault. Right. I'm surprised both movies didn't do better. So I wonder if was it just a marketing fail? I don't know.
I guess just I don't know if it was a marketing fail more so than just not two movies that people were crazily interested in.
Yeah, it's interesting because Guy Ritchie's kind of been up and down lately. He's had movies that nobody seems to care about, even though they're pretty good, and then other movies that do really well for him.
Yeah,
it's been interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that. Yeah, I continue to be surprised by the amount of money anime movies make in theaters. Not really my style.
Yeah,
I don't particularly like the Japanese animation style, but that kind of style of drawing. But they do continue to make money.
Yeah, I haven't really gone to any in the theater, so I can't really speak to that.
Yeah, so I can't speak to whether or not they're well done anime movies, whether the stories are good, whether there's a lot of interest. It's not a style that I particularly care for. But they do continue to do pretty well. Not surprised that Civil War made it back to number one, just because the underperformance of everything else below it, and it was the biggest profile movie that was out. So
I'm kind of surprised that it's above the two new movies still.
Yeah,
because to me it doesn't seem like the kind of movie that would multiple weeks be in that area. Not like it made a ton of money, but
and that's I think as you're looking at it, I think it's more about the failure of everything else around it than it is about Civil War itself. I mean, one thing I would say about Civil War is, in order to get the headline of being number one, it picked the right release time.
Yeah.
Now that release time is probably not one that's going to generate a huge amount of money, but it will get you to the top of the box office. So, and it did have a decent amount of promo. I don't know if you saw this, but they were basically, the one thing that came out, their movie posters were AI generated. Yeah, all their movie posters were AI generated, and they don't really correspond to anything that actually happens in the film.
Interesting.
Yeah, I saw something
to look
about
up all
that.
The posters.
Yeah, it was interesting.
That's very cool.
Yeah, anything else in the box office results?
Not really. I mean, I guess just from my personal experience, I'm not too super surprised, because the movies that I did go to, there were not a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And it does seem to be my experience that when I notice something like that on a weekend, especially, that's usually a good sign of how things are going. So
yeah, I couldn't say the same thing, simply because I went to when I went to Ungentlemanly Warfare, it was 11:15 in the morning. And so I don't expect a big crowd at 11:15 in the morning. That being said, my dad and I were the only ones in the theater. I don't know if that means anything or not, but there you go. All right, let's move on to the box office this week. And we have a couple of new movies in, as well as a couple of reissues in. One of the first ones that you're going to see is this week, Challengers opens. The highlight here is this is a movie from Zendaya. And I just clicked on it, but apparently I did not. It is basically a movie about Zendaya as a tennis star who suffers a career-ending injury and then decides to coach her husband to try and get him to the next level. But one of her methods apparently is to put him up against her ex-boyfriend, who's also a tennis player, and things ensue.
And apparently they had things ensue together when they were younger in the movie. So the whole thing looks
So is it a tennis movie?
Sounds like there's a lot of love or no love lost. I'm not sure.
So yeah, interesting movie there. If you like that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that movie, whether it's I feel like it's not really going to be a sports movie.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really about all the relationship drama and all of that type of stuff.
This is in the line of, there have been a few tennis movies that weren't really tennis movies.
Yeah.
Match Point, Wimbledon. this feels like it's going to be along the same
I would give
line.
Wimbledon a little bit more than Match Point.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they were the tennis was a setting
Yeah.
for other drama. Yeah.
Must be something about the sport.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Next up, Boy Kills World. Boy Kills World is a fever dream action film that follows Boy, a deaf person with a vibrant imagination. When his family is murdered, he is trained by a mysterious shaman to repress his childish imagination and become an instrument of death. Bill Skarsgård, Famke Janssen, Jessica Roth on this one.
Yeah, and the one tagline for this movie in the trailer was something like B-movie Looney Tunes violence on acid. And I'll talk about this later in my watch list, but that is accurate.
Oh, yes. Unsung Hero is our third new release. And this is based on a remarkable true story. A mom's faith stands against all odds and inspires her husband and children to hold on to theirs. So, not a particularly descriptive description of that.
Well, I can provide a little more context in that this is about the family where Rebecca St. James came from, and her brothers, her younger brothers, Luke and Joel Smallbone, who are King and
Country. Yes,
and it was directed by their other brother Ben.
Yes, I've seen the trailer for this movie.
Yeah,
I didn't connect it right away.
Yeah.
Yes, so Rebecca St. James and For King and Country, it's kind of their backstory.
Yeah,
yes.
And I actually saw they went over some of their story and they like showed the trailer when I was at their Christmas concert last year before they were close to releasing it publicly. They were like, we're working on this thing, and I had no idea when they showed that I wasn't sure, is this like an independent release? I had no idea they were working on making it it's like a big theater.
It is a big theater
release. So very interested to see how it does, because it definitely looks like a good movie, and knowing the story, I'd like to see the story too, because they talked quite a bit about their childhood growing up and some of the crazy stuff. Because they basically picked up from Australia, and their entire family all moved to the United States, and they didn't know anything. They didn't know anyone, and basically just had to figure out how to survive.
Yeah, it does seem like a really interesting story. Yeah, for sure.
And now they're probably one of the more popular Christian groups for King and Country, and they're really good too.
And Rebecca St. James had a very long run as top seller Christian charts, in the 90s and early 2000s. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that'll be an interesting one. We also have 2 anniversary releases this weekend. So we have The Mummy gets its 25th anniversary re-release. We'll see if that one shows up later on either of our lists. Maybe not. So yeah, Mummy is 25, and there's a re-release of that. Also, Alien is 45, which
I was this close to going to see Alien last night, but chose to see Boy Kills World instead.
Okay, confession: I've never seen Alien.
You should see Alien.
I know I should see Alien. It's one of those where it's like I just had never gotten around to it. Now I've seen Prometheus, but I've never seen Alien or Aliens or Alien Resurrection or
Well, a lot of people who have seen all the Alien movies don't like Prometheus.
Yeah.
However, I'm not in that group.
I'm not.
Prometheus is very good.
I like Prometheus. Of course, I don't have the background and the lore. However, I like it. Now, I will admit it's not a perfect movie, but yeah. So Alien and Mummy, you got your choice, depending on how old you are and what which movie you want to see. One thing I saw, and I didn't put this in the outline because I couldn't find the article when I went back to look for it. I saw an article that was basically talking, how do you get like Gen Z to come back to the movies, show re-releases of older movies. And so this is actually, I skimmed the article and read it. Basically, the idea is they're more nostalgic for older movies and are more inclined to go see movies in the theater that they wanted to see, that they just never got a chance to see, as opposed to new movies.
So my main motivation behind considering going to Alien was that I didn't see it in the theater, obviously, when it first came out. I don't know, are people nostalgic enough or desirous enough about the Mummy or the Phantom Menace or the Matrix or the Iron Giant or any of these movies to go? I don't know.
I don't know. But I think it can be a tool because it doesn't take that much to like dedicate a theater or a couple of show times on the weekend
Mm-hmm.
to showing an old movie because there's not the same overhead to be able to do it as there is a new movie, and it doesn't hurt.
Well, this has been an emerging trend. I think for the last like 5 years, we've seen the amount of different things like opera or sporting events or documentaries, having special releases, and then an uptick in these kind of anniversary releases. Because I don't remember many of these at all when I was younger, like a kid or a teenager, or even when we were in college.
And I think, and we'll get to some of this when we get to the 1999 movies, but I think part of that is the quality of movies now. We talked about that over and over again. It's like the quality of movies has just gone down. And so if it comes to it, would I rather see a movie from an era I know was good? That I have some nostalgia for, that I would like to see in theaters, or do I go out to throw out whatever random movie they've got out in box office now? And I get that. This is somewhat off topic, but it does relate to this. I read an article recently saying like, when was the last time Nike designed a shoe everyone had to have? It wasn't a reissue of something they did like 15, 20 years ago. And I thought about it for a long time. I'm like, I don't know. Because almost all the Nikes I have are like vintage Jordan re-releases, like old Air Maxes, and there does seem to be something to that when it comes to the movies as well.
I guess the question is, are the shoes / movies worse, or is our opinion of what came before locked in that time because of who we were and where we were?
For us, maybe I can buy that argument, but that you're seeing that with the sales for younger generations too. They're gravitating towards especially on the sneaker end, they're gravitating towards the older ones. And you're seeing that with that article I was referencing earlier about them wanting to go see older movies in theaters. I do think there's a quality aspect to it.
Ryan has clearly forgotten the first rule of Nostalgia Movie Club, which is we don't talk about Nostalgia Movie Club. It's also the second rule.
I wonder what you might be referencing. Could it possibly be a movie that came out 25 years ago?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Just want to keep listening and find out.
I do think we can make a segue here then. But our discussion for this week is a series we've been doing of movies with big anniversaries. So we've previously done movies with 10-year anniversaries, 15-year anniversaries, 20-year anniversaries. And now we've moved on to 25 movies turning 25. And as we started earlier, it feels like 25 years ago should be a lot further back than it actually is. But we're talking about 1999. 1999, folks, 25 years ago. Wow.
Can't believe it.
Wow. But just general thoughts on 1999. I read a couple of articles in prep for this. This is considered one of the best years of cinema in the last 30, 40 years. 1999 is considered one of the greatest years in cinema. And as we go through some of these movies, I think you'll understand why. Really, really good year. Do you have general thoughts on 1999? And I also gonna want to get into any trends that we saw as.
One thing as a personal note that's interesting for me about 1999 is a couple of these movies I saw in the theater. One in particular I saw like 8 times in the theater. A couple of them I found a couple of years later. A couple of them I found like a decade later. And I think that speaks to just the quality of the year and the variety of the year.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of lesser known ones that I found later that ended up being some of my favorite movies from the year.
Yeah.
And either just because I didn't get around to seeing them at the time, I didn't know about them at the time because I
Yeah.
wasn't focused on that kind of movie. I mean, this was end of high school, beginning of college for us, so I wasn't necessarily focused on all the different genres of movie at the time because I was more looking at what was popular.
Yeah.
So, like as I just referenced, for instance, seeing the Phantom Menace 8 times in the theater over the course of a year.
Well, it was in the theater for almost a year.
Yeah,
So,
it was.
Yeah, very similar to what you said. This era and this year has a lot of special significance for me, just because like it was the end of my junior, beginning of my senior year, 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I had my driver's license, you have the independence that you didn't have before. You could, this was the era I really started going to movies with my friends and doing all this stuff. So a number of these movies I saw in theaters, or if I didn't see them in theaters, I saw them later that year and they came out on video. I saw them, the next year or two when I went to college. Like this is a very nostalgic era for me. And so and looking over the list, I forgot how many of these movies were 1999 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, it just really made me want to go back and watch quite a bit of them. I'm like, I haven't seen that forever. Oh, I missed that one. So yeah, looking over this list, I'm like, yeah, I need to do a deep dive in 1999 again, just for the fun of it, because there were a ton of good movies. Were there any trends that you saw looking over the lists and reviewing 1999 movies?
Trend. I guess the main trend I would say is that like it seemed like movies were made for the people.
Who knew?
Movies that people want to go see.
Who knew?
It just seems like, And one of the other trends I saw is movies that would turn into like cult classics or become part of the culture.
Yes. Yeah. I like that you said that, because I was trying to get my head around something, but I think you're right there. There's a lot of movies from this era that became cultural icons or were cultural defining moments for an era, or were defining moments in cinema that represent this particular era. Yeah, that's really good. Trends that I picked up on this, one is the emergence of computer technology and that sort of thing. We'll get to one of the movies that kind of centered around, but that was a trend, kind of the emerging internet computer era, as it were. Now that's a bit of a trend that went from the 90s into the 2000s. That was a big theme from the late 90s that carried over. Another trend is kind of like teen/young adult angst and desire. There were a lot of movies in this era directed at kind of like the teen young adult crowd that centered around relationships, desire, angst, like all those sorts of things. That was a big thing in this era.
Maybe this was the sunrise of that movement that we ended up seeing the twilight of.
So I think one of the reasons why it feels like I resonate so much with this era is it feels like a lot of movies were directed at my age group that I was a part of at that time. So it felt like we had a lot of stuff to go to and a lot of stuff to that was directed in our era.
One other trend I'll say, it's kind of in conjunction with the movies were made for the general audience, is that there are several movies in this group of movies that I think were completely misinterpreted by most of the audience. Because I think most people watch Fight Club and they don't understand what it's actually saying. I think most people watch The Matrix and they don't understand what it's actually saying. I think most people watch The Boondock Saints and they don't understand what it's actually saying.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more depth in some of these movies than people have actually taken the time to consider and understand what they're actually trying to get at.
And we'll get to this when we talk about The Matrix. Sometimes what we've seen in subsequent is a reinterpretation to fit a modern sentiment, as opposed to what was actually meant when the movie was made and what they were actually trying to say, and trying to boil down some of that depth to simple narratives. I think that's something that has happened, which is a flaw of the modern era that did not exist in the same way back in the late 90s. So let me give you a few stats and then we'll jump into our top 10 list. Okay, let's talk about the best pictures, the Academy Awards for that year, dominated by American Beauty. So American Beauty won Best Picture. Best actor was Kevin Spacey from American Beauty. Best director was Sam Mendes from American Beauty. Best actress was Hilary Swank for Boys Don't Cry. Best supporting actor was Michael Caine from Cider House Rules. Best supporting actress, Angelina Jolie in Girl Interrupted. So those are your Academy Awards. So now let's jump straight into our lists. Our top. You have honorable mentions.
I have 3 honorable mentions. 2 are kind of dishonorable mentions. In that I don't think they're worthy of being in the top 10 of any list ever, but I like both of them.
Oh, now I'm curious. All right, let's hear it.
Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
Okay,
is one.
Uh-huh.
I just don't think it's a really good movie, but I saw it 8 times in the theater because I loved it. Like, especially like 17, 18-year-old me.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was the fact it was the first Star Wars movie in so long, and I just loved getting back into that world.
It was the first Star Wars era or Star Wars movie that basically 2 generations of people got to see in theaters when it came out.
Yeah.
So
So the main reason why I saw it so many times is because I saw it with different people every time because people hadn't seen it yet, and I'm like, you gotta go see this. It was just fun. The other one is Wild Wild West, which is really not a good
objectively
movie.
A terrible movie.
But I still love watching it because it's absolutely ridiculous.
If you want some fun, look up what roles Will Smith turned down. To do Wild Wild West.
My other honorable mention in a good way, and arguably this should be in my top 10, but it's just not because there are other movies that I like. Other movies that probably don't deserve to be above it, to be honest. But because of my personal feelings, they are. Toy Story 2.
Okay.
I have just outside my top 10. But it might be the best Toy Story movie. So it's really hard for me to say that it doesn't deserve to be at least mentioned.
I will give a category, like a caveat category. And this is what we were talking about, movies that kind of defined an era or defined a theme of the era. But I will not put on my top 10 list, both because I don't think they really deserve there, but also for other reasons. But really did emerge as movies that really defined and shaped an era and had a lot of the teen angst and desire things, or just that in general. You have 3 movies: American Pie, Cruel Intentions, and Eyes Wide Shut. So not going to put any of them in my top 10 list for a variety of reasons. And honestly, they don't belong there. But now a lot of the list will have Eyes Wide Shut as one of the best movies, but I won't put it on there for other reasons. But they clearly defined an era, a piece of that era, but don't belong on the top 10 list for a number of reasons.
Yeah, none of them are on my list either.
But I felt like I needed to mention them because they did really help direct where film went for a number of years after that on the pop culture side of things, and represented an era, even though I don't think they deserve to be in the list. I'll give you, since you did 3, I'll do 3 honorable mentions, and my 3 honorable mentions will be The Bone Collector, The Thomas Crown Affair, and Arlington Road, which I really struggled with whether or not to put in my top 10 or not, because it's an interesting movie. The first time you see it, you're like, and also had an honorable mention for craziest opening. If you've not seen it. All right, do you want to get to our top 10 now?
Yeah, and I'm gonna say, I think before we get to these lists that we're gonna have some different movies on.
I can almost guarantee you that we're
just because I think we're each gonna have some movies that are personal favorites from this year.
Yeah,
because they just hit the right spot with us. You know what I mean?
Yep. All right, so let's do 10, 9, 8. We'll do them 3 at a time here.
All right, so my number 10 and number 9 kind of go together.
Okay.
Because they're the same feeling. And like I said, I don't know if either of these two movies deserve to be over Toy Story 2. Objectively, there's no way in hell they do. Sorry. But Mystery Men and Galaxy Quest
Okay.
are two movies I find absolutely hilarious, and I will die laughing watching every single time. And these are two of the movies I mentioned where I did not really find them until a few years after 1999, because they're not like huge releases. They're both kind of off the wall comedies. And the thing that really unites them is they are both complete parodies of two major genres of film
Yeah.
or TV, which is sci-fi with Galaxy Quest and superheroes with Mystery Men.
Yeah.
And the thing that's great about Mystery Men is this is a parody of the superhero genre before the superhero genre even became a huge thing. Like, this movie would be so much funnier, I think, if it came out now.
Yeah,
With
because
the context.
it kind of came out right after the death of the superhero movie.
Yeah.
Which kind of like, what was it, the last Batman and Robin, I think, was the one that just kind of like, all right, we're done with this.
Yeah.
And then the era revived in 2002 with the return of Spider-Man. So it exists right in that period after that genre basically died for a number of years.
So it's kind of really addressing that like comic book Batman series angle of things. That's what it plays off of.
Yeah.
But looking at it now, it absolutely is like somehow taking cues from all the Marvel movies that would end up coming.
Yeah.
Making fun of like the super serious, self-serious nature of those movies at times, and the corporate takeover of things. Like the one main character, Captain Amazing, is sponsored by Pepsi and like all these other things. Hank Azaria is fantastic in this movie. I love the movie. The character played by Edward James, almost the Sphinx, who just like he says all these random things that make no sense, and they're just like. And the best part of the movie for me probably is Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
And then looking at Galaxy Quest, basically just absolutely tearing apart Star Trek. It's in a really funny, lighthearted, like meaningful way.
Yeah, it's one of those where as a big Star Trek fan, in theory I should be offended by Galaxy Quest, and I'm not at all. because and that's a testament to how good of a movie it actually is.
Yeah.
And this is one of the ones on the list like, oh gosh, I have not seen that in so long. I need to go back to that one.
Yeah, but Tim Allen is just great as the captain in this movie. And the thing that makes it so good is the characters, like they really nailed the writing as far as like the characters playing archetypes.
Yeah.
And Alan Rickman too, obviously, is just great in this movie.
Yeah.
And I by Grabthar's hammer, what is savings? Making fun of the commercialization of any kind of movie, you know, into something that it was never meant to be. So those are my 10 and 9. And then my number 8 is the Boondock Saints. And the Boondock Saints, obviously, I didn't hear about until a couple years after. Yeah. Because it didn't end up getting released in the theater. But man, I have a hard time putting it above number 8. I'm sure there are people, maybe even you, who would have it higher than that. But it is brutally violent.
It is.
It is obscene in the sense that every third word seems to be the F word in the movie. So you definitely have to have a certain maturity level to watch this movie. You did not want to show this movie to your 13-year-old kid. Yeah. And my parents, and I don't know your parents, but like a lot of people's parents, and a lot of people would just be like, there's no redeeming value to this movie because of the things I mentioned. Yeah. But I think this movie might be one that I would point to and say there is an art to movie making regardless of what kind of things are in it at times, because it's a good movie. Yeah. There is the firefight scene with Willem Dafoe is probably one of my all-time favorite movie scenes. And it's art.
This is one of those movies where, and I'll talk about it now because it is on my list and it is on the lower end of my list. It's one of those movies where it was one of the first movies I remember being like, the cinematography and directing choices made this scene significantly better than it had it just been told straightforward. The choices the director and the cinematographer made in putting together these scenes and these shots really, really made them significantly better, made them of interest, made them different. And it's just kind of one of those things where sometimes being an indie movie gets you to some places that a main release can't get to, and introduces something that a main release can't. And I think this one encapsulates all of that, and it captures an emotion,
Yeah.
and a feeling that's hard to get to other places.
And this is one of those ones that I was mentioning as like became part of the culture,
Yeah.
because this like completely from the underground became something that like basically every college kid knew about. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about your 10 and 8?
So my 10 is Entrapment. This is Catherine Zeta-Jones and Sean Connery. It's a heist movie. Heist movies are always a soft spot for me. It also kind of encapsulated this era because the main plot is there's a short window of time where we can make this massive heist, and it's around the switch of the 1999 to 2000 switch, and the whole Y2K potential Y2K thing that came about. So from that, like if you live through that era, remembering like nobody knew what was going to happen. It was kind of a Rorschach test as to how you thought about what was going to happen when the Y2K thing. If you really don't know what I'm talking about, years used to just be the last two digits, 98, 97, 99. And then they were concerned that with it going to 2000, that computers would reset to 1900 as opposed to 2000. And so what would happen? Would calamity ensue? Would all sorts of things happen when this happened? And really nothing.
I think all the cars poop. It's Model A's.
And so it was a whole thing back then to potentially be worried about, but they used that as an advantage of saying, hey, here's an opportunity for a heist. And so it's just it was an interesting heist movie, lots of cool scenes and interesting interactions between Catherine Zeta-Jones and Sean Connery. So that's my 10. Number 9 for me was Boondock Saints. Number 8 for me was The Green Mile. This is one I came to a couple years later and have only seen once or maybe twice. So that's why it's as low on my list. I know people really like this one. But for me, I just haven't seen it enough, and it didn't capture me enough that it's higher on my list.
All right. Number 7 for me is Office Space. Like endlessly quotable.
Oh, yes.
I think you could say that it's not necessarily a great movie. It's in a lot of ways, to me, Office Space is more like an extended TV show. But I really like it.
Yeah. It has the look and feel of a TV show. Yeah.
Number 6 for me, American Beauty. Which, as we heard, won like every award.
Yes.
That year. I don't know if maybe it has suffered a little bit in my ranking just because we found out Kevin Spacey was just playing himself in this movie. But Sam Mendes did do a really good job with some of the stylistic choices in this movie, and it has some real depth to it. It's pretty disturbing when you actually think about the meaning behind the movie and what is around us all the time.
Yeah,
is basically I think what he's trying to get at. Like, this is not an abnormal situation. Basically, there's darkness lurking around every corner, and everyone is kind of the whole premise of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
Number 5 for me is The Sixth Sense. Another one that obviously became a huge part of the culture. Everyone was saying, "I see dead people."
Yeah.
And if you had no idea, like if you hadn't seen the movie, you're like, well, thanks for ruining the movie for me. But and obviously this is the movie that launched M. Night into everyone's consciousness.
Yeah.
And very excited for the summer of the Shyamalans because his daughter is coming out with a movie this summer, and then he is coming out with his next movie this summer.
Yeah.
And he's producing his daughter's movie. So it seems like we're gonna have a whole lot of M. Night this year, for which I'm grateful because I'm a big fan of his. And this is not my favorite movie of his, but it for me was very culturally significant and opened up a whole lot of people's eyes to him as a director.
Yeah, and I think he captured an element here that was really like there's sometimes where you just hit on something and the thing you hit on works and just works so well. And I think that was it. 7 for me was Office Space, same spot as you. I think it captured the whole like shift into corporate, kind of 9 to 5 thing that was like, is this really what we want to do? Like it captured that so well. And was it Judge and I'm blanking out on the other guy's name. They are brilliant writers. They really are. They are brilliant writers. And this one really does capture that. Number 6 for me was October Sky. Really liked October Sky. I could have this one up here higher on my list. But there's some movies that just capture you and you want to go back to them over and over again. This is one of those movies for me. It's got the space element. It's got the overcoming element, like the striving, the making the most of yours. So there's a lot of great elements, but it's well acted. It's well directed. It's a really good story. It's just everything. It's just very, very solid movie. And number, what are we on?
5.
7, 6, 5. Sixth Sense as well. The Sixth Sense as well for me on this one. It is not my favorite movie. The second one was my favorite movie from him.
Yep.
And this is one I didn't come to until later because again, I've never been a big horror genre fan. And while this is technically horror, I think it has a lot more of that thriller end than it does on some of the horror end. So it just comes down enough into a different genre that I can watch it and appreciate it. And it just took me a while to get there.
I think I'd heard so much about the movie that I didn't see it for a while. I actually think I saw Unbreakable first, if I recall.
I think I did too, yeah.
So after I saw Unbreakable, I was like, this is incredible. Then I was like, I need to go back and watch this first movie.
Yeah, because Unbreakable came out, I want to say 2001. And I was working at the movie theater when Unbreakable came out. So that was one of the ones that I would just like pop in and watch 5-10 minutes of it when I was on break. And I was like, I really got to see this. So I finally went and saw the whole thing. And then, then I went back and watched The Sixth Sense. Yeah.
I'm going to do my number 4, number 3.
Okay.
So number 4 for me is the only animated movie on my list. I do have it higher than Toy Story 2.
Okay.
And, The Iron Giant.
Okay. I figured that one might end up in your list.
Which I think The Iron Giant is one of the best regular style animation movies of the last probably 30 years. Even I don't think there's been much since it came out that you could argue is better. Maybe even any animation style, including computer animation. It tells a great story. Vin Diesel manages to somehow convey incredible emotion as a emotionless robot. And he makes me cry, and it's annoying. It has some very powerful messaging in it, and it's really beautifully animated. And I really like the Iron Giant. And one of the things I like about the Iron Giant, it's a movie you can share with the whole family, and my kids love it too. And I feel like it's kind of a timeless movie in a way that a lot of the other movies from this era aren't. Because it's not necessary for it to come out in like that era. Yeah. It's kind of outside of that era. Number 3 for me, and this is very much, I don't know if anyone else would have this as high on the list. Maybe you do, and I'd be surprised, but a movie that I did not find until well after 1999. And I I have it right up there with The Truman Show. Right up there with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind for best Jim Carrey performances. Man on the Moon.
Man on the Moon. Okay.
Which is Jim Carrey portraying Andy Kaufman, who was an incredibly tortured, incredibly brilliant man. And he plays him throughout his entire lifespan. As a writer and actor on Saturday Night Live, as a comedian. Just he got into professional wrestling at one point. He became like a self-help guru at one point. Like he goes through all these different versions of this guy, and just does a great job of portraying a like broken, confused, frustrated person. And it's a really, if you've never heard of the movie Man on the Moon, you should check it out.
It is one. It was, you know how Robin Williams had those performances that showed, okay, I can be a dramatic actor and still include like my personality and my comedy within it. This was that for Jim Carrey, for sure.
And the thing is, like, if you actually go back and watch video of Andy Kaufman himself, watching the movie, be like, oh, this is Jim Carrey, like being Jim Carrey. Then you watch Andy Kaufman performing and acting, and it's like he was spot on as him. And then he was able to turn that and play like the guy who was struggling and frustrated with everything too, that he was behind the surface. And I just think it's really, it's one of the best character study movies I think I've seen. Man on the Moon is my number 3.
Yeah. So number 4 for me is American Beauty. This was one I did. Yeah, I definitely saw it like a few years later after it came out. And again, just the interesting cinematography and the way this story unfolds, like how you know what happens at the end, literally right from the opening words and the opening credits or the opening monologue of the film. And so it's one of the few movies that does that, that kind of gives you the end right away. But the movie is about how you get there. It's not about what actually happens at the end. It's about what led up to that point. And when done right, that could become even more powerful than just simply seeing the end of the movie. And there's a little bit, it's a different genre and different, with a little bit of like Breaking Bad element in this. If you've seen that show about, that's basically about the descent of a character. This one as well is kind of about the descent of a character. And there's a lot that you can pull out of this movie. There's an awful lot that you can pull out of this movie. And the effect of a character making the flip that he does on everyone else around him. And yeah, it's really, really interesting movie from that standpoint. Maybe we'll have to do a movie philosophizing about this at some point, because I think it's that worthy of it. And number 3 for me, this is one that I just love, and probably nobody else has it as high on the list, but I think it perfectly encapsulates the era without some of the negative things that some of the other movies that encapsulate the era have. And hits me, right where I was at with that is 10 Things I Hate About You. 10 Things I Hate About You. I love this movie. I love it. I think it perfectly is like stereotypical late 90s teenagehood. The clothing, the music, like the ska band at the prom, all of the things that hits up. But the story, I mean, it's a retelling of Shakespeare for the late 90s era. So I love Shakespeare. The late 90s was awesome. It hits everything up there. But the characters' interactions were great. I love the I love the kind of romantic comedy element of it, the Shakespeare element of it. It's dang near a perfect romantic comedy for that era for me. So it's way higher on my list than it probably is for almost anybody else, but I love it.
I mean, that probably should have been in my like honorable mentions at least.
Yeah.
But this was a movie that I like avoided for a long time. I ended up watching because a girl wanted me to watch it. And I was like, It's a really good movie. So I like kind of had to be like, I was wrong. It's a really good movie. And,
Yeah.
um,
I do have an affection for some of the romantic comedies because I think they're fun.
yeah, and it's very much way better than Romeo and Juliet as far as the retelling of Shakespeare.
Talk about movies that represent late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just looking up one of my favorite lines from the movie is "I hate the way I don't hate you,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just got some really good lines in it. And,
Uh-huh.
a little extra nostalgia, obviously, with the Heath Ledger
Yeah.
factor too.
Mhm.
And then young Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really thinking the reason why I did 4 and 3 is I figured our 1 and 2 would be the same. I'm not sure in what order.
I'm guessing that's the case. And did you struggle with which one to put first? Or did you kind of have a lead?
I would say I struggle, and I'm not even sure I made the right choice.
All right, go ahead and give them away, and then tell me, give me the movies, and then tell me what order you put them.
Fight Club and The Matrix.
Yes.
So I have The Matrix number 2.
Okay.
And I have Fight Club number 1.
Okay. I debated. I have them reversed.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think there could be an argument made for either.
Absolutely.
Fight Club, I mentioned this earlier. I think Fight Club is like maybe the most misinterpreted movie of all time because so many people see it and they're like, yeah, that's how you should live. And it's like the whole point of the movie is that's not how you should live.
Correct.
But I love all the subtext, all the craziness that you realize is going on when you finally figure out what's happening in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know about you, but like when I figured out what's happening in the movie, I was like, I need to watch this again.
Oh yeah.
Because I clearly missed some things.
Yeah.
And then we watch it again, you're like, oh yeah, I clearly missed some things. I mean, it helps that Edward Norton and Brad Pitt are like 2 awesome actors, 2 of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
And they did such a good job.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Yeah.
And it's hard to talk about because in some way I want to like deconstruct the whole thing, but in another way, like for the person who's listening to this or somewhere
there's somebody out there who's never
not seen it yet. Yeah. I don't want to ruin it for them because holy crap.
Let's do this. Let's talk. I do feel like we need to get into it a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's put that at the end of this segment then, and we'll give spoiler warnings for that. Because I think we can talk about the Matrix without having those issues. So let's come back to Fight Club and then we'll give a spoiler warning. That way we can actually get into it because I think it's important in this moment to get into it. I put the Matrix at number 1. And the reason I put the Matrix at number 1 over Fight Club is simply the fact that I think it had a broader cultural impact. I think you could put them in terms of movies themselves. They're right neck and neck. There's not really much to separate them in terms of those. I think the discussions it spawned, the cultural impact it had, the way it changed cinema going forward, in terms of how action movies are done, in a similar way that several years later the Bourne films would. It brought something brand new, and that was the reason I put it atop.
Yeah.
Not because it's necessarily a better movie, but because of the impact of it had a greater impact than what I think Fight Club had. Even though Fight Club is just as good a movie.
Yeah, how many movies replicated or tried to replicate the concept of bullet time or slow motion action or like brought the idea of use of color as the main thing into how they told the story. Yeah. I just think it made all kinds of impact on cinematography.
And this is where I get upset. If you read somebody from the modern era talking back about this movie, they will give you a particular narrative as to what this is about. And that is hogwash. Because the philosophy underneath this movie is so rich and so full of so discussion worthy as to some of this type of thing, that you could talk about technology, that you can talk about life, that you can talk about see how you see the world. And it's so, there's so many levels to it, so many layers to it that you can pick through and that you can come across and discuss, that to narrow it down to the simplistic narrative that currently has taken hold when people look back on it drives me nuts. And it's like, okay, we're not retconning this thing. You do not do that to a movie that had this impact and was this powerful. But it just, I remember the first time, because I didn't see it in theaters initially, and when it first came out on video, this is again the nostalgia stuff coming back. I had, it was senior year, I had senior privileges, which meant I could leave campus for lunch. So I'd go to a buddy's house and we had like 20 minutes to hang out. And he rented The Matrix, and he put in The Matrix and just showed the scene where they rescue Morpheus from the times that, you know, they plug in to the Matrix to the scene where they rescue Morpheus. And I'm like, I've never seen anything this amazing in my life. I need to go watch this movie now. Yeah. And so then I rented it that weekend. I went to see it, but it was just, I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and this is the movie Keanu Reeves was made to be in.
Yes.
Say what you want about how good of an actor he is. I think he's a better actor than he gets credit for.
Absolutely.
Personally. But he was the ideal person.
It fits his strengths so well. And because of who the character is, mitigates his weaknesses. You know, similarly to how I think the Twilight role for Kristen Stewart was, because Kristen Stewart is clearly not that great of an actress, but her role in Twilight was perfect for her and what she did well, and was able to minimize the things that she doesn't.
And just imagine Will Smith as Neo.
I can't. Sorry, I can't.
Welcome to the Matrix.
Oh, yes.
All right, so
spoiler alert, if you have not seen Fight Club, just skip ahead to the next part of the discussion. And you can find that in the show notes as to how far ahead you skip, because we are now going to give spoilers when it comes to Fight Club. Let's do it.
So they're the same person.
They're the same person.
I'm like, man, the first time I got that, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What did I miss in this movie? And then you go back and you really do realize you missed a lot.
So the whole time the first time I watched it, the whole time I'm like, I just had this unsettled feeling. There's something strange about this. There's something strange about this. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't pick up on what it was. But I was like, oh, wow. Okay. And I will be honest, the first time, once the first time I found out what it was, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Felt in the moment, it felt to me like, okay, what I just watched and what I just thought seemed meaningless now. Went back and rewatched. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Now I get it. Now I see the brilliance of it. But at first, once I saw that, I'm like,
I don't know. I don't think there's been a better done version of two sides of a man fighting with himself.
Yeah.
Which is basically the whole point of the movie.
Yeah.
Is you have a good person inside of you, a bad person inside of you, or you have an ordered person inside of you, you have a disordered person inside of you. Yeah. Which one wins, and is it necessary for the one to win every time?
Yeah.
Or should it be a combination of the two? And I think that's the big moral question that comes out of this.
And this movie is fascinating on a number of levels, because I think when you look at the themes of it, it's almost ahead of its time. It picks up on a cultural, societal trend when it comes to men. And I think it fleshed that out in a way that becomes even more apparent as time went on. And that is the idea of men feeling like they don't have their place in society, and the resulting destruction of when men don't have a proper outlet for their natural inclinations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the natural tendencies of men wanting to be men. And when they don't feel like, when they feel like they're out of place, when they feel like they're out of society, when they feel like they're pushed in a direction they don't want, then you get, I hate the term, but then you get what comes out eventually. The term becomes toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And I hate that term, but that's another side stuff. But the destructive capability when men don't have outlets, positive outlets for their capabilities and for them to be who they are, you get the destructive element. And this movie really is about that. A man who feels out of touch with himself and out of touch with society, and the way he acts out against society as a result of that, and the destruction he rains down on himself and on society around him, and the fact that he's able to get so many men to go along with him as a result of that, speaks to that idea.
And I think you are dealing too with the counter narrative there that men feel like they aren't able to express emotion.
Yeah.
And I think this movie also points out like the necessity of having a safe way to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you kind of turn into the darker loner side of yourself. Because as much as the movie portrays itself as, I think this is where people get the main disconnect, where people get things wrong. It's not like this super awesome thing that he has this following of guys who are doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because really he's alone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people are missing out on.
Yeah.
Like there's no actual like camaraderie or brotherhood in that nonsense, because he's fighting him. The whole movie is him fighting himself.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who's around him and who's trying to like support him. He's an island.
And that struggle for purpose, when you don't have a positive purpose, that you'll take any purpose that comes along, even if it's destructive.
Yeah.
And I think you've clearly seen evidence of that going forward.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, this is based on a Chuck Palahniuk novel. And so I think he hits on a lot of prescient themes, and so well done.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Edward Norton has no Oscar recognition to his name is criminal, as it were, because he is one of, if not the best actor of this era. And
I am Jack's disgruntled moviegoer.
there are so many good lines in here. There's so many good lines.
So just a side note, so we're still in the spoiler section, so this will relates to that, but I actually had a friend in college, their band was called Tyler Speaks for Me.
Yeah.
And that's and I love that, and that's my favorite line from the movie. Sometimes Tyler speaks for me. And then when you go back and understand what he was actually saying in that line, you're like, oh wow.
The biggest thing I have in this movie, everything else makes sense about it. And I can get to a place where I can understand it, but the very first fight that draws in the very first other guy, because once you realize what's happening, the very first fight is just a dude punching himself out. That's what happens in the first fight. I do have a slight hard time to believe that somebody else would see that and be like, ooh.
Right.
But he's also getting at the self-destructive element that men have when they don't have purpose.
This guy is so crazy that I should probably listen to him or he might hurt.
So that's the only one. Because once you get like a couple people, then you can see how it would catch on and how but that's the first one. That's the only one that I don't 100% buy.
And if you want to see a movie that's not Morbius, where Jared Leto is actually somewhat decent, this might be the movie for you.
Yeah. I'm Jack's complete lack of surprise.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's been a great discussion. These are great movies, and it's totally cool to be able to go revisit these. Let us know if you have any other ones that are on your list that didn't make our list. We'll close out real quick with our watch list, movies we watched over the last week. Rob, what'd you watch?
So last night I went and saw Boy Kills World.
Nice.
And I went into it thinking it looked like a pretty fun movie. It was a lot more than I expected it to be in a good way. Obviously, incredibly violent as the trailer show. Even more violent than the trailer show, even the Red Band trailer. But it had a good story to it. There was actual emotion in the movie. It was hilarious. I can't remember laughing so loud in a movie in a long time. But it is absolutely not a family movie. This is the adult of adult comedies. Surprisingly, like trying to think back through it, it's like no sex stuff at all in the movie because that's not what it's about. It's about a guy trying to get vengeance for his family, and the story ends up being not exactly what he thought it was going in to his plan, and it was just like 2 hours of nonstop insanity in a good way. So us boy killed world.
Yeah.
And then I also watched what else I watched this week? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I went and saw anything else this week. It's a busy week.
I got to see Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really liked it. I think I liked it better than you did. It was interesting to me to watch it because there are a few elements, and I don't know if I fully realized this until watching this movie. There are definitely some crossover elements between Tarantino and Guy Ritchie. Even though they have their own distinct styles, there are similar things they like to do at times. And this one felt like a mashup of Guy Ritchie and Tarantino. Especially when I kept thinking about Inglourious Bastards as I'm watching this movie, because there's so many things that reminded me of that, including like a similar crossover actor.
Yeah.
Who happened to be in this movie.
But on the bad side instead of the good side.
Yeah, he was on the other side, playing a German in World War II, just on the opposite side.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating. It was fascinating to see that. So that also was like pinging those things. But I liked it in general. Now, could it have been better? Possibly. I kept like wanting it to be a little bit more fast paced or a little bit more like I just think I wouldn't say it dragged because it doesn't drag. I do like it was almost amazing.
Yeah.
It was almost amazing, but I still think it was quite good. I do agree with you that not the best impersonation of Winston Churchill I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like there are better Winston Churchills for sure. But
yeah, I think you definitely hit on something there with it being like archetypal Guy Ritchie. And I think the reason maybe why it doesn't go from like good to great is one of the things that he likes to do is to go off on little rabbit trails. And I feel like that happened in the movie a couple times. Like the scene where she's showing off her shooting skill in particular is one thing.
Yes,
it doesn't really like flow with this. It's part of the story, but it's kind of like a side.
I thought about this right when the scene happened. I'm like, I like the scene. I know what they're doing. The only way this works is if later she displays that skill in the movie, and she doesn't.
Yeah.
The only other time she shoots somebody, it's at point blank range. So it doesn't require her to have incredible shooting ability. So that one felt to me like he either should have found, I think what he was doing was trying to establish her credibility as part of this team and credibility as a soldier.
Yeah.
And I think he should have found a different way to do it if he wasn't going to use her shooting ability later.
Well, we say that he is well known for his like ensemble cast thing. And part of that is giving each of the ensemble cast a way to show who they are and what they are. And I think if he doesn't include that scene, maybe the only thing you think of is her being like the lounge singer, damsel in distress. Yeah. So I understand why he would want to give like another side of her character, but to me, it just kind of felt a little bit incongruent with where the movie was generally heading. Yeah,
for sure. But I will say, Isa Gonzalez, she stole almost every scene she was in. She was really, really good in this movie. She was. And so I think she was one of the standout characters. I also enjoyed Alan Richardson quite a bit in this one. His character was a lot of fun.
Like when the group I was with after the movie was over, the one person was like, "Who was that behemoth of a man?"
Yeah, Jack Reacher. If you
I was
haven't
like,
done
is he actually as big as he looks? And I was like, yeah, he is.
it. All right.
Thank goodness Hollywood doesn't test for steroids.
Yes. All right. All right. That'll be the show. Thank you, everyone, for checking out Film for Fans. And thank you for visiting filmforfans.com. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, all that good stuff. Until next time, enjoy the movies.